Welcome to the College of the Canyons Model United Nations training videos. The goal of these videos is to familiarize you with the rules of procedures and strategies used at MUN conferences. In this video, we will show you how delegates should utilize directives.
I
3,
suppose so.
2, 1.
So here we have different types of directives that you will be using in a crisis committee. The first one will be more of a personal directive. A personal directive is a directive undertaken solely by yourself. No one in the crisis room or the delegates around you or your chairs will be seeing these directives. These directives are submitted directly to the crisis staff. They usually come in about anywhere from 10 to 20 minutes to collect your pages. What happens is they look at them without any scrutiny. You write the directives and submit without anybody else having any knowledge of what you are secretly trying to plan and without being aware of any of the contents. In a committee, the crisis will ask delegates to turn in any directives they wish to see incorporated into the crisis timeline. Remember, your directives must be consistent with the powers of your own personal character as well as in which the way the crisis is going inside the rooms. For an example, Shaq is one of the all-time greats, but if it doesn't make sense to ask his character to shoot free throws.
You're asking for that?
Yeah, I was asking.
Oh, I was expecting the kick. I thought
Oh,
we
I
were going to do
thought-
the kick. I'm waiting for a kick here. I
forgot about
saw
the
you going
kick, I'm
low.
sorry.
The kick works.
Okay, we'll get the kick part. See, it's the public speaking, not so much dancing incorporated into
Yeah, it looked like you were doing it for a jig. How about trying to think of ways, because you are using your hands, because you're using your hands doing the thing.
Well, I saw
It's okay.
this
No,
deal. I just didn't realize it in.
Yeah, right
We're
after
going
I'm like,
for
wait,
that.
he's not gonna. Okay,
point at him. Just under.
I'll just do that.
The
Yeah,
kick
like
works.
I'll
I'm
do the
just under your tattoo. So just point.
Tattoo?
Do something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't see your tattoo.
You got a couple, don't you?
Yeah, I've got a few.
Yeah. 2.
In a good personal directive, a captain of the ancient Roman naval force might want to deploy his ships to Carthage. Here, the more detail, the better. How many ships are you sending? Where are you sending them? And for what purpose? Specifics not only help a delegate inside of the committee room and to keep track of their actions, but also to assist the crisis staff in shaping a linear, eventful crisis committee. Admiral Anderson, as we discussed, I agree that a quarantine of offensive weaponry, not just a full blockade, is in order. Since any interception of Russian vessels will take place in international waters, we must ensure that we are in the right in case of any confrontation. By the Rio Treaty, signed by the OAS, I believe we have our justification, which will ensure that our quarantine is not interpreted as an offensive act of war. Command the 3rd Fleet to intercept any Russian transport ships capable of carrying ballistic missiles. Orders are to raise the readiness level of SAC forces to DEFCON 2. This is an example of a good directive that crisis committees will see. Directives can be written as a way to take covert action. For example, for another one, in a Cuban Missile Crisis, perhaps you'll be playing JFK. A character playing JFK would likely send a directive calling for a blockade of Cuban territory using a specific number of ships for a specific amount of time with a specific purpose. In summation of personal directives, a delegate whose personal directives are specific, tidy, and character consistent should have no problems navigating the direction of a crisis.
3, 2.
So one of the questions you might be asking yourself as we take a moment to pause is, when are these directives being used? To answer that, so unless stated otherwise by your crisis staff, directives can be used at absolutely any time. A skilled and imaginative delegate should look to be proactively shaping the crisis as it goes along, whether it's a 1-day conference or a 5-day. Why let others shape the world when you have every opportunity to do so? If you have a pen and paper, you have everything you need to take charge. The crisis staff knows who's writing personal directives and who isn't.
2.
Another form of directives that you'll see often used in a crisis committee are communiques, not to be confused for communiques. Another form of these directives is sent to the crisis staff. And instead of taking direct action like you see in personal directives, what these do is you'll be contacting or sending messages to the outside world. Perhaps you'll be sending messages to real people outside your committee room that are alive, or at the time of your crisis committee, were alive at the moment. But more often than not, sometimes you see it being sent out to fictional characters. The content of these directives are limited to the following areas. Number 1, in order to receive intelligence regarding the world outside of the crisis committee. As you can see, 2 of the examples we have listed are as such. One of them would say, Captain Pierre Louis. Please update me on the current state of readiness of my aspiring. How much longer do you think it will take me to complete their training? Another example would be Secretary Williams. Did Vice President Biden visit your congressman's office today? He has been acting quite strangely, and I would like to ensure that he is well. With regards, President Barack Obama. Another one you can use is to generate indirect action as opposed to direct action guaranteed from personal directives. As we have listed these examples, some of them would follow, saying, Queen Victoria, congratulations on your most recent conquest of the barbarians in Central Africa. As I have already have a colony to your east, might you consider a trade alliance? I have 500 ounces of gold I will exchange for rights to one of your diamond mines. One other example would be, Congressman of Montenegro, I implore you to pass a new law restricting the passage of Albanians through our marketplaces. Such a law is needed to reduce terrorist activity in our great nation. Like strong personal directives, a well-built communique contains multiple elements. The overall goal is to establish dialogues with a present-day or historical person outside of your committee, though you can also communicate with a real-life character that is not in your committee, as we have previously stated. A strong communique will showcase your ability to be concise, remain in character, and also to display your creativity. On the bright side, a talented crisis staff will even give the character you're communicating with a little bit more life to them, so it can become a more enjoyable way of making yourself known to the crisis staff, who don't know how well you're doing inside of the committee room, since the crisis staff only will enter to your crisis room, your committee room, to give updates or to take back your directives and take them back to the crisis room. Outside of that, communiques, personal directives, and press releases, those are the only way they can measure your level of skill and ability outside of the room. Know your character, know your capabilities. Last but not least, as far as directives go, we have something we like to call press releases. Though these aren't seen as often as communiques and personal directives, they're something that can help sway the direction of your committee without even having your other delegates know it was from you. A press release, and the difference between a press release and a communique, is simple. Press releases are addressed to the public. More often than not, what you will see is when a press release is given, most of the time the crisis staff will give it back to your chair and it is read aloud, regardless of whether you wrote it was from yourself, from your delegation, or not. A creative delegate can use these ways in an effective means to sway the opinion of other delegates inside the crisis room. An example of a press release would be as follows. Let's say in a fun little historical committee. News sources have reported troop movement on the front lines of the battle at Helm's Deep. Elves are in the area, have formally declared a state of war against the kingdom of Sauron. Upon further investigation, sources have learned that 15 wizards lost their lives in a skirmish outside of Isengard.
Wait, this should be eye level.
Very interesting.
Is that clear?
Okay, you good? Are you good? Okay, 3, 2, 1.
What are directives? Crisis committees are an engaging, hands-on Model UN simulation format. You want all the hot suit and fashion of the GA, but with less parliamentary procedure and more live-action role-playing, well then you can drag that diplomatic behind into your nearest crisis committee. In a General Assembly, directives set an agenda and end with resolutions. In a GA, the resolutions are end-all, be-all. However, in crisis, delegates use handwritten notes called directives and communiques to directly influence the way and direction of the committee that the committee will be taking throughout the role-playing storyline. Only ballers tackle world hunger and cyber-terrorism with well-thought-out and comprehensive action. A well-versed crisis staff will incorporate directives and communiques sent to them privately into the crisis committee experience and use methods such as press releases, directives, and communiques to help better shape your crisis experience.
You're full of shit, you remember?
Thank you for participating in the Model United Nations training videos. Going forward, we hope these videos will be beneficial for you in your Model United Nations